You guys might have EVNG or GNS. I prefer GNS. The reason it's more stable. But yes, I will show you EVNG, which I have. I don't know why, but I don't like EVNG. It might be because of the stability or all those things. But I see a lot of students asking for EVNG. That's why I'm giving more focus on EVNG from student point of view. But from my personal point of view, I'm happy with GNS. I've been taking so many batches, and I'm very much happy with GNS. The way it works, it's very stable. Don't like try to upgrade it always, which will remove the stability. So I'm just trying to be on the same version which I have it. But EVNG, I have lot of issues every time. Okay, so let it get started. So I'll just show you both of the things which I have. Just check it with what you guys have, and I guess you guys all also having the same thing which was given, which is again a part of the course. Okay, let me show you. GNS will be something like this. The one who opted for GNS, you will see something like this, and someone who opted for EVNG, you will see something like this. Say continue. Default is admin and if sign in. So these are few things why I don't like EVNG. Okay. So where is my diagram? So this is my diagram. I click open. Okay. Maybe I show you both of the things at a time. Okay. So this is my EVNG. Okay, so I believe we are all on same track. EVNG student, you will see something like this. GNS student, you will see something like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this node on my GNS, which is 32.200, and on EVNG, on the EVNG lab, let me take something else. Let me take it as 32.60. Okay, it's one of the device, Cisco box 32.160. So one thing, just remember on your virtual emulators, what we have done is we have kept them in such a way they take the DHCP IP from your own laptop. So it doesn't have to be same. So let's say in my case, it is 32 series, 192, 168, 32. In your case, that could be a different IP, 192, 168 dot something. So don't be confused. How do I configure is, let's say I double click that. Okay. This is so the basic thing will be already done predefined, but I'm just giving you once again the basic explanation since you have lab, and if you are stuck, so I'm just showing it from the basic thing. Okay, so until this comes up, I'll open up my GNS. I'll double click this. Okay, where it says switch one. I go to conf t. It's my interface E0/2. Okay, 0/2, which I have to place it on DHCP. Something like do show run interface 0/2. Okay, so is it no, okay? So what I did is I just took it down because sometimes pulling an IP from DHCP is a time consuming. So what I did, the first start I took that IP and then manually started configuring. Okay, so let me once verify is that really 2 zone? Okay, so it's 0.2, right? Fine. So where is my IP configured? It's just configured on one of the VLAN basis. Okay, I just took down from that to 0/2. show IP int brief exclude unassigned. Okay, so this is my laptop IP 32.200. So as I told you, open up the CMD. If I try to ping it from here, from my laptop, it's reachable. And why am I doing this? Why am I showing CMD? Because here is where my PyCharm is located. So my PyCharm is easy to synchronize with the GNS devices. Okay. Same way on my EVNG. Okay, on my EVNG, it's directly connected to this NAT cloud. Okay, it's on 32.160. Let me show you how did I get that. If I do show run interface gi 0/0, so you see this, I had first configured IP address DHCP. I got an IP address and then I made it static way. The reason is every restart might be you will spend some time on getting the IP from DHCP. So in case if your local laptop on a local laptop, the topology which you took it from us, if it is showing to be IP address DHCP, get an IP address from the NAT adapter. It's all your GNS is going to do. So basically, let me show you. The GNS is integrated with VM. Okay. So in my case, this is the VM Workstation Pro. If I right click, if I go to the settings, so you will see my first preference is a NAT cloud. Okay, NAT adapter. So this is trying to get the IP from my laptop DHCP server. So, so same thing would be configured in your case. If you're a GNS guy, you might be seeing NAT or you might be seeing something else like a custom. So this is where I am getting. So in my case, this is the condition. This is how I have configured. When you got it, might be you might have taken a cloud or you might have configured something else, because there were a lot of things. Now let me show you in the case of sorry, so that was EVNG. Now let me show you in the case of GNS. So in the GNS also I am preferring NAT because I want to get that 32 dot series IP always, so that my PyCharm integration is easy. So it depends on what adapter you prefer. So I am keeping always NAT. If you want to change, you can change it. If you're good with what it is, keep it same. Don't uh, temper this and don't try to break your lab yourself. Okay, I keep it NAT so that I get a perfect IP from my laptop's DHCP server. So every laptop will have their own DHCP server. So if you see here on EVNG also I'm getting 32 on, and on GNS also I am getting 32. That's why I kept the NAT adapter, a unique adapter which will give me the IP. Okay, so 32.160, let's give it. Yeah, I got disconnected. Am I good now? Do you see my screen? Okay, great, right? Fine. Yeah. So as I was telling that once again, I'll open my command prompt and I will see if my Cisco box, which is on the EVNG, is reachable or not. So both are reachable. So that's my some of the prerequisite. One of the prerequisite was reachability. Now let's say if it is not reachable, do you think that's gonna stop you? No, it's not gonna stop you. You have other ways to do the setup. So one way would be keep a Ubuntu server as an option, and if you can bring the PyCharm within that, it will still help you. You can put all the devices in one network of your choice, and you can bring the PyCharm. Okay, let's say you just have some time, you have the Windows available online, Google, you can deploy that and you can keep the PyCharm here. The thing why we are not doing this and giving it to student is it's overall increasing the file size. It will make like 15 GB of the file size, and downloading becomes a lot of mess for you guys, right? So we are trying to minimize all these things. From a point, we can just simplify the design. You have your Cisco box inside your GNS or EVNG, and externally you have the PyCharm. You can just integrate with the help of the NAT cloud. That's the only way we are doing to simplify the option. If you wanted, we could have given you everything. We could have got the Linux, we could have gone get the Windows within this. It's all over making like 15 GB for you guys to download, right? So to simplify, also you might be running on very small RAM stick like 4 GB, 8 GB, and running another instance of Ubuntu, another instance of Windows will again break your laptop, or it will slow down your laptop. That's the reason we make use this NAT cloud. In GNS, that's called NAT cloud, and in case of EVNG, we just call it as whatever the network. Okay, and we already have our laptop already comes with some DHCP, and it will automatically pull something. Okay, so that was regards to the lab synchronization. What are the prerequisite that we discussed in the previous class? If you're aware of our prerequisite, let me open up your batch, which is July batch. I'll just show you those steps which we documented. Okay, so your it was a step by step. If you have the access to the web portal, so here is where we had mentioned all the step by step things. So I'm not gonna repeat this every time. Might be some joined for first time today. So today I'll just walk through once again on those prerequisite. So these were the step by step things. Okay, you will power on your Cisco box as I showed you. These are the some prerequisite which has to be put up on a Cisco box. Like you will go and configure your VLAN, the line VTY. Since we are going with the telnet, I am preferring the configuration of my telnet. Okay, and if you see here, I said a comment section. Okay, because I wanted to show you once the first script without or excluding this, and in the second script I wanted to show you by including this. You will see drastic change or improvement in your script. Okay, uh, you might have some guys who already tried. If you execute your script and if you exclude this line, okay, you will see your script is taking like at least half an hour to 1 hour to just get an output. If you don't write this, okay, you just configure this on your box and you execute your Python script, it will take 45 to 1 minute, or it is going to take forever. You're not going to get output. So you're actually asking your box, Cisco box, to break the telnet connection from the box itself within 5 seconds. So this is a 5-second timer. We are improvising our timer by including this. Okay, and just copy, run, start, just saving this is one time setup. The second, or the step number 3, was sync or ping or telnet. Give it ping or telnet test. So in my case, I already did a ping test. I can do a telnet test like 192.168.32.200. Okay, it says that it's not open. Let's check. Might be that's used for a different lab, so might be I have enabled something else. So let's see VTY. Okay, so it's on SSH. So let's bring up telnet now. Transport input, I can make use of telnet or I can make use of all. Both are same. And how do I test this? Once again, go to your CMD. It's gonna be admin and Cisco. This is for the GNS students. Now for someone who was using EVNG, let me do the same thing. Telnet. Okay, and it's not configured. So that is for EVNG student. This switch, it says it's not configured. So let's say what is not configured. Okay, it's not configured. What I do, I just take from this and I'll paste it over there. Okay, I'll not manipulate my interface IP. I'll just do this. So any issue with the voice? Okay. Okay. So the thing is, if you give me like 2 minutes, I can restart my laptop and connect to another ISP. Okay. My laptop needs a quick restart. Okay. So don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. This would be the same meeting ID. I'll join this. Okay. Fine. Okay. See, we have Vijay coming in now. Okay. Not not an issue. Not blaming anyone. Okay. Well, so the initial half an hour, I was just talking about the GNS point of view and EVNG point of view, how they get an IP address, what were the prerequisite, all those things. Okay, and from the script point of view, no, not the script, from the step by step that I discussed. Okay, so we ping normally first to make sure we have reachability on those boxes. This is my GNS. This is my EVNG. So where is EVNG? EVNG is 160. Okay, so both of them are up. But I saw that one of the device you can SSH. Sorry, not SSH. You can telnet, but the other one was not able to. And I was about to show you uh, the telnet what we enable. Okay, so let's say if I go to the GNS once again, I'll bring up the telnet features. Conf t line VTY024. I say transport input all, so that will make it up. Okay, and I can give a check from here. So it's admin and Cisco. Now the same thing if you wanna okay, admin and Cisco. Okay, and the same thing if you're trying to test it out on EVNG, then EVNG was not configured. Okay, what I do, I'll just take this thing and I'll just copy paste, or I can just write it up. Okay, so I'll go to conf t, I'll go to line VTY024. I say login local. Okay, uh, I'll say transport input telnet. Come out of this, give it username admin, privilege of 15, password Cisco. Okay, more than enough. Now let's give it a try. If I do 160 telnet on 160, it's asking me for username admin and Cisco. Okay, so we are reachable. Now those student, those already got the predefined lab. So you have, might be you already have a username network and automation which is on your topology. Okay, so if admin username doesn't work, then give a try with what is displayed on your lab topology. Okay, so that was prerequisite. Now let's open up the PyCharm and let's trigger some script. And I told you, you just have to download the PyCharm, uh, the community version. So those who have not downloaded, go to PyCharm and click on download PyCharm. Okay, and this is the one where it says community. Okay, So that is one which I am running. So I have over here. Uh, how do you create something? So let's say this is my script, or let's say I take up one of the script. Okay, I'm gonna say it's a Python script. Let's say script one, or let's give something. Let's not forget to close the extension. It's gonna create a blank script or a blank page where you can write your script. Okay, you have another way to test the reachability to the Cisco box. If you see over here at very bottom, okay, give me a second. Okay, so if you see over here, there are three more buttons which it says to do terminal Python console. Okay, open up one of them, like where it says terminal, and you can initiate a ping once again 192.168.32.200. So they are reachable. You can also do a telnet test 192.168.32.200. It's admin and Cisco. Okay, so you don't actually have to rely on CMD. Your PyCharm, if you have your PyCharm, you can straight away do it from the terminal, which is over here. Okay, this is the option. You can either do from CMD or you can make use of terminal. It's one and the same. Let's focus on the script one. We have already written our script one. I'll go back. This is my script one. Okay, and I'm going to copy the entire thing. I'll paste it over on my PyCharm. This was told to you. Okay, I have my 32.200. I have my username, password. Rest let's ignore. Let's first run this. Okay, to just make sure it's executable or we get into some issues. So let me check quickly one thing. Okay, so you have 10 minutes. That's why it will take so much of time. And yes, as I told you, it took some time. To cut down the issue, now is where I am gonna tell you why did I say include this. That's the second the execution line. Okay, if you don't if you don't include this line, okay, so let me just try to show you. If I take out this command, so this is a tricks. Okay, this is one of the trick. It's not an official thing. It's a trick which you need to know from a network point of view, because that's something which no one is gonna tell you. You have to explore it your own, on your own. I removed it. Okay, I'm not sure what is it going to consider. Is it a 0 second or something, or so I mean to say, if you don't set this time, if you don't set this time, the PyCharm is gonna take a lot of time with integrated to the box. Okay, you're not gonna get the output. You can give a try when you're running it. Might be after the class. You see this, it's taking a lot of time. So to kill that unwanted time, we will go with very good timings. Okay, so I would prefer keeping it execute timeout of 0 to 5 seconds. So it's a minute. First thing you enter is in minute, and the next thing you enter is in seconds. I keep a 5 seconds for my execution. Now let's run this, the same script. Okay, so there you go, you have an output. That means this is a working script. Now let's try to read, or let's try to decode the whole script in line by line what happened. Okay, so what I do is, first I'm going to remove all the unwanted junks from the script. I don't need a if statement because I already know that there is a password. So this is a option if you want to keep a password or not. So in my case, I have it. What else can I take it out? I don't have enable password. I can take it out. What else can I do it? So you see there are a lot of bytes. You see there are a lot of ASCII. They separate admin and syscode. Do you think we can simplify this? We can simplify. So how can I simplify? Let's take, I take out everything. Okay. I'm just trying to keep very minimum lines that is required. I'll put my IP directly over here, 192.168.32.200. That's my IP address. I don't want to have those individual 3 lines. I can straight away put my username, whatever username that I have here. Okay. Uh, so let's say it's admin. Okay. So if I put my username straight away, then there is no need of encoding. If I put my password straight away over here, okay, so when I say it's asking me for username, when my box says that there is a username on the prompt, I'm gonna write my answer. Okay, so I'm gonna say it's admin. I'm gonna push it on bytes. I'm gonna say why it happens, and I'll put a backslash so that I go to the next line. The same thing follows up over on with the password line. Okay, I'll make use of Cisco. So this is a simplified version where everything is within the script, but this is not a good practice. One second. Okay, so I actually had to give this to someone else as well. Just a second. Okay. Okay, so these are the minimum numbers of line which I cannot trim any further. Okay, now let me tell you what is happening over here. So on the first line where it says import telnet library, telnet is an module. It's a module which is based out of Python. Okay, so basically my first step before the lab was that I installed my Python from the Python website, right? And under this Python website are there so many modules. So one of the module is telnet library. You have other modules like paramiko. You have modules like netmiko. You have nipam. There are lot many modules. How do you call them? This is a way you call that module. It's called as telnet library. Okay. The second step is how you take a telnet. So basically, when I write a telnet, so I go with telnet 192.168.32.200, right? So over here, I'm making use of telnet live, which is a package, and I'm making use of a function called as telnet. This is called as function. Okay, and this function telnet is a sole part of the telnet library. So let me say in this way that telnet module, I'm relying on telnet module, and this word called telnet is a package or is a feature inside this package. So every module will have its own mechanism to connect. In case of Paramiko, we have something called as like a remote handle or a connect handle. In case of Netmiko, we have something called as Netmiko. We have connect handler. So similar way, every module has its own transport channel, we call it as, or a function we call it as. So in case of telnet library, we have telnet. So this is a default one. We cannot change this. Okay. Who is going to carry this whole information? It's your variable. This is called as variable. Okay. And they are custom variable or a user variable. I can change this. It don't have to be tn123. You can keep it the way you want it. Okay, it's a custom one, but you cannot change these two things. These two things and these things. These are the mandatory ones, or they are standard way of writing it. Okay, this is a variable. Now, what is variable? If you remember from my class, my previous class, it's a empty container. It's an empty container. We can call it as empty container. And I'm just placing the data. And what kind of data I'm placing? I'm keeping a string now. This is a string. Okay. I'm sending my IP address over on this variable towards my box. So let's say if I draw over here, this is my PyCharm. Where is my Cisco box? It's within the GNS or EVNG. So who is setting up this telnet connection? How is the telnet connection happening? Who is initiating the telnet connection? It's this total line, right? So basically you're setting your telnet connection, and whatever you set, or let's say you initiated the telnet connection on 192.168.32.200. So once you do a telnet connection, the Cisco box is gonna send you a prompt for username, right? So basically this username has to be carried by someone, some variable. So that is why I'm calling a empty container. So this empty container will be used further in my script. If you see totally, the whole container is used throughout the script. If you would have taken up something like XYZ, then everywhere you would have seen it's XYZ. So you need someone or an empty container to carry the information from PyCharm towards your box, carry back the information from the box to your PyCharm. Okay, you just cannot say telnet and just close the matter. In a script, everything is defined. Especially these datas has to be sent over on a variable. Okay, so that's why I kept a empty container where the telnet 192.168.32.200 information is carried. In what kind of structure it is carried? Right now it is carrying in string, but I can make use of byte, because that's not going to make sense, because this is just between the two boxes. Okay, the actual thing of byte and string comes into picture when you have open up the console. When you open up the console and you have sending a command, or if you're receiving an output, there is where we discussed about byte in case of Python 3. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what is all these things. Okay, just consider as of now that we are going to consider everything over here in bytes. That's because it's a Python 3. Okay, I'll tell you why we use bytes, what are bytes and strings, what are all those things. But let's try to decode first. So this is telnet. We are calling the package. I'm initiating the telnet. I am expecting username. From where am I expecting username? From my box, right? So if I show you, if I open up my CMD once again, if I make use of that command telnet 192, okay, 192.168.32.200, the first thing what I get from the box is username, right? So that is why I say read until I'm prompted for username. Now let's say I would have placed something else, login, then my script would have been broken over here. My script will not go further. So that is something where a network engineer should know which platform is gonna give you which kind of prompt. In case of Cisco, it's gonna give you username. In case of on a server, you will get something like login. In case of Arista box, or in case of a VXRS Juniper boxes, you might get something else. So you should know your own platform. So in my case, it's a Cisco box. So I'm going ahead with username. As soon as I read username coming in to my PyCharm console, there is where I'm gonna write. Okay, now this is called as transport channel. So you have PyCharm, you have Cisco box. You're setting something called as transport channel. Which transport channel are you making use of? You're making use of Telnet. Who is doing the work of carrying those data? It's your TN123 in this example. So you are getting something from the Cisco box as username. Okay, I have this over here, read until. Now this has multiple flavors: read until, only read, read all, read very eager. I'll give you examples of other things. As of now, consider until. Okay, so until I get username coming in from my Cisco box, I'm gonna wait. If I get something apart from username like login or something, my script will not execute. That's why I said until. I'm very much particular about this word coming back from a Cisco box. As soon as I see that, I'm gonna write my username. Okay, it's admin. Once it goes to the box, what happens gradually? So if you can see it yourself, right? If you have your CMD open, if you just do a telnet once again 192.168.32.200, you first get admin. Your PyCharm is gonna write admin. The next thing, immediately you are prompted for password. Okay, so that password is coming you in a read format. So this is a read format. Okay, this is read, this is write format. Once again, you get something in a read format where it's prompting you for a password. Okay, and there is where you say that I'm gonna send my password in the right format. So there are four things happening. One, you're getting a username from your box. On basis of that, you're gonna send your username information. You're expecting something coming as password, prompt for the password, and then you're gonna send the information of password. And I can say at this particular point, I was successfully established. Okay, so once you have your telnet established, you have all the control. You can just take it as a normal Cisco box where you can run your show command. So in my case, I went with terminal len 0, but let's say I go with only one command. Okay, I'll make use of show clock, and if I execute this, okay, and there you go, you have an answer on your prompt on your screen itself. So this is a command, CLI command, a normal CLI command. Whatever you received, whatever that container 123 TN123 is carrying, you want to be human readable, right? So basically what is happening so far is it's all in machine language. It's happening in bytes. Now you receive something in bytes, it will be in a coded format. It will be something like 01 or something kind of a coded format. You want something human readable, and you convert it back to ASCII, and where you get this. Okay, now let me relate a few things here. This is very basic command. We don't keep admin and password straight away on the line. We try to segment them, or we try to segregate them, and we write it separately. Okay, the same script. Okay, let me copy this first, and I'll give it this later on. So let's say the same script, if I go ahead with some security point of view, from the security concern of security concept, let's say I don't want to keep it here. I'll straight away create three more variables. Okay, so let's say host equals to I say 192.168.32.200. So this will be now taken out. Okay, and I'll put straight away the container. Okay, so this container know what is the value within that. Okay, it makes me more easier next time if I'm writing the same script for a different box. I don't have to change anything in the script. I just have to change the few parameter within the script. Okay, so I took out the IP and kept its own variable. Similar way, we will make use of admin and Cisco. For admin, I'll prefer keeping something like user. Okay, and I'll make it as admin. Now this is a string. Okay, this is a string, and what I do is I cannot write a string over here. The reason is I'll start getting an error, because if I write string plus bytes, it's an error. It's a concatenation error, because I cannot mix two different datas. This is one type of data. This is a different type of data. What is data? Data is a piece of information. It can be username, password, numbers, characters. It can be anything. Okay. So datas are of different structures. One is byte, one is string. You have like tuples, you have list, you have dictionaries. Okay, so you cannot mix two datas in one variable. That's gonna give you concatenation error. Why am I telling is because I have this in bytes, right? So somehow I have to also bring this in byte. Now, how do you convert string to byte? There are two ways you can convert. One is if you add a simple b inside the string, it's gonna be bytes, something like this. Example 1. Okay, this is one structure. The second structure is encoding. How do I encode? Let's say I have user dot encode, and I make use of this format. Now this is the way we can convert string to byte. Okay, so let's do that. Let's make it on a appropriate node, or let's say we bring it up on a appropriate node. So I take out this part. Okay, because I don't want my password over here. I say user dot encode and just close it. Okay, by default, if you close this, it's like UTF-8. If you want ASCII, you can write ASCII. If you want UTF-8, you can still write UTF-8. If you keep it blank, it's gonna be by default considered as UTF-8. It's not what I am telling, it's what Python says. Okay, if you go to Python pep, the designs, okay, the style guide for Python says that for on a Python 3, make use of UTF-8. By default, it's gonna be UTF-8. So in Python 2, it's your ASCII. In Python 3, it's your UTF-8. Okay, so you can keep it blank. If you keep it blank, it's a UTF-8. So second thing, over here, I'll define appropriate password. I'm gonna say password is Cisco. Okay. Okay, so there's a mistake with the case. User encode fine, user admin, good. Okay, password, let's keep it all lowercase, and you have Cisco. Okay, so I'll bring up the same value here. I say password dot encode. Okay, sorry, there's some mistake over here. It should be equals to. Okay, when you define a variable, this is the format. Something like so how you define something, you define a variable in this way. Okay, you don't write it in this way. That's gonna create an error. So you have to make use of equals to. So we defined the three things. We defined our IP address, username, password, and we accordingly encoded. Why we are doing encoding is we are converting it to bytes. And as I told you, there are two ways to convert to bytes. Okay, if you have, let's say you have a string called automation. So everyone agree that this is a string. How do you convert a string to byte? You can do it by adding b. This is one way. The second way is, let's say you have automation as a string somewhere stored on a variable like user. Okay, and now someone asks you to convert it. So in this case, what you do is you consider user and you have to make use of encoding. Okay, and this is the second way of doing or converting it to uh, bytes. So let me show that part. So let's close this. I have this. Okay, so let's say x equals to automation. Okay, x equals to automation. Now let's say I told you the second way of encoding this, right? So if I say print x encode, so you see what is it finally getting you? It's actually encoding it in a byte format. That is what I'm trying to do. I'm keeping everything on byte. The reason why I'm doing byte is because my PEP design or my style guide says Python 3 works on UTF or UTF-8. Okay, now what are these? I'm gonna tell you. It will take 5 minutes for me to tell that. Okay, so I guess this is clear so far. I'll run this. We didn't add something. We just tried to segment the things, make the script look more better. Okay, and you see you have all the outputs. Now let's talk about from the theoretical point of view. Why bytes, why string, what are these UTF? They're making so much of noise now. Okay, so let me tell you a little theory. Okay, so you all know what is English alphabets, agree? You know what is a number, right? When we deal with these kind of things, English alphabet, numbers, the operators, okay, we are all good. We can make use of a string. We can also make use of UTF. But the issue is when we talk about the other languages like Chinese, like French, your emojis, how do you deal if you have the other characters, right? So when we were only having English, when we were dealing with only English numbers, we were all happy with the string. That's where the Python 2 was. Okay, who is that joining now? So 1 second. Okay, so it was all up to string. As soon as we started automating the other languages like your Chinese, French, emojis, Hebrew, okay, the Arabic words, there is where the string was not capable, because string consists of 1 bytes. Okay, string consists of 1 byte, whereas all these things, they consist of 2 bytes or 3 bytes. So what was the solution? The solution was Unicode. Unicode is one such language which can have almost everything from this world. It can have English, it can have all these other formats, it can have emojis. So how it works is, it works on a code point system. Okay, whereas these things, they works on numbers. Number in the sense, each one of them will be assigned its own number. So let's say if I type English as a string, okay, and if I see what is the number associated with E, it will give me 0. If I see this, it will give me 1. If I see this, it will be, so the backend will be associated with number, and they are all 1 byte of the data. But when we deal with these 2, 3, 4 bytes of data, we can't use string. We have to make use of Unicode, and Unicode is one whole universe, and within universe you have segments like UTF-8, UTF-16, UTF-32. Okay, so in Python 3, which we make use of UTF-8. Okay, so this was a correlation between string and UTF. Now what is the correlation between bytes, the strings, because that's what we are trying to convert, a string to bytes, right? So what is the correlation between these two things? So let me write in this way. Byte is a machine language which machine can understand, not humans, whereas your string is a human readable. Okay, So what is ASCII? ASCII is your string. Okay, ASCII is your string. So all your strings that you write, it is in ASCII format, which is 1 byte, which is good enough if you're dealing with English and all other things. Okay, and you need a variables to store this. I can say that uh, the strings are human readable. Okay, and they need some encoding. They need some encoding to store the data on your disk. And what kind of encoding we have? We have either the ASCII encoding, or we have the UTF encoding. So this is a correlation of entire thing in Python 3. Okay, so when I say Python 3, I say that I am going to put all bytes. Byte is nothing but it's a machine language. That's genuine concept. Okay, by default bytes are gonna work in UTF-8. That's again something which we saw. It's a unique code which is gonna consider 1 byte, 2 byte, 3 byte, and all the things. It's gonna take them right now. Why is I'm concerned about the string, and sometimes I see writing ASCII? What are the correlation between this? I cannot make use of a string in Python 3. I have to convert this. Now, how will I convert this? I have to convert it using some encoding. Okay. How many types of encoding we have? We have two best encoding. One is ASCII. The other one is UTF-8. Okay. Why I'm considering UTF? So let's take UTF, but by default, you know that it's gonna consider UTF-8. Okay. Now, if I go back to my script, okay, whatever we discussed just now is something which we use here, right? We are using string, but I'm not gonna make use of string between two machines. My PyCharm is one machine and my Cisco box is one machine. I will have to convert them into bytes. How do I convert? I have two ways to convert string to byte. So I have a string. Okay, let's say this way. I have a string and I encode and I convert it. Okay, so why am I encoding this? Basically, what I'm trying to encode, I'm trying to just put a UTF-8. Okay, sorry, it's okay. So I cannot show the UTF here, but I can show directly on PyCharm because it's a different platform where I was trying to demonstrate. Okay, so if I show you over here, x equals to automation. Okay, and if I try to convert it to bytes, so let's say x encode, you need some encoding. Okay, if you just make use of blank, it's gonna be UTF-8. But if you make use of UTF-8, that's again the same. If you make use of something else, you get a different encoding enabled. If you see something else, you get something else. So in PyCharm, in Python 3, it's UTF-8. Okay, let me show you on a online tool. If I try to convert from a string to bytes. Okay, so basically these are the things that you need to know from the data structures. ASCII to bytes. So what do I have here? I have my UTF. UTF is a uh, uh, so byte is your machine data, and UTF is a encoding. Okay, so if I say UTF like, so you have UTF and ASCII, right? So some human readable. So let's say username. So what do you see when you see something human readable? Because you are making use of encoding so that humans can read. But what is machine gonna read? Machine is gonna read the bytes. Okay. Similar way, if you have bytes to ASCII. So let's say you write username. That's a wrong format because bytes is something which machine is gonna understand. So do you think you can write something on a bytes, it's not feasible, but I can write something in ASCII, right? So let's say if I take this out, if I make a different converter where it's ASCII to bytes, okay, I can show you that. So let's say ASCII, okay, this is ASCII to bytes, okay. So we need some encoding so that we humans can understand. So let's say username. See what happened. You tell me if you would have got this output here, uh, over here, does it make sense? It doesn't make sense, right? I need some encoding which can get me the human readable thing. So all these things were uh, in a bytes, okay, in a human readable, sorry, in a machine readable format. So what I did is I finally decoded it to ASCII. Now let's convert it to UTF-8, okay, or let's keep it blank. See, you, there you go. Okay, so from ASCII and UTF point of view, for English numbers, they are not gonna make much sense. We can also prove that if I open up ASCII 2 bytes. Do I have that? Okay, sorry, ASCII to UTF, not bytes. ASCII to UTF, because you know that ASCII and UTF are the encoders, right? They are encoders so that humans can understand. See, okay, the only drawback of ASCII is it's older, it's used in Python 3. We cannot use as a encoder in Python 3, okay, because it's a 1 byte. It's good with English characters, numbers, operators. But what will you do when you have the other things like Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, emojis? You need a better encoder, right? So take it in this way. When you're dealing with machine to machine, or a PyCharm to machine, or machine to PyCharm, it's all in bytes. That's my Python 3 says. As per the design, they are gonna be bytes, okay, they are gonna be bytes, okay. And as a human, if I want to read something on my output, then I cannot read what is byte, what are numbers, right? I need to decode it back. So this is the whole theory behind the first script, okay. So does that make sense? Does that help you understand why we have this ASCII? How are they related? I know first time it will be all above your head, okay. So let me break down it in this way. What is character? So if I write something like username, okay, I can say this multiple characters, okay. Each character will take some space to be stored, okay. It can be 1 byte, it can be 2 byte, it can be 3 byte. So let's say I have two things with me. One is bytes and the other one is strings, okay. Why do I compare these two things, byte and string? Because that is my data format. As I told you, in Python, the data can be anything, a piece of information, right? It can be in bytes, it can be in string, it can be tuples, it can be dictionary, it can be set, or it can be anything else. It can be boolean values, it can be anything. We are focusing on two things now, bytes and string. Can I make use of string? I can make use of string, but my Python 3 says don't make use of string because it's a human readable program. It's gonna be 1 bytes, okay. It's gonna only capable of handling English. What about bytes? Byte is much more than that. It's a machine language, okay. It's a machine language which is uh, mandatory in your Python 3, okay. Python 3 is bytes, so take it in that way. you get anything in string, your whole intention is to convert that to bytes. Now, how do you convert that? You have two ways to convert any string. You can add a simple b in front of a string, you can convert that to byte, or you can encode it. How do you encode? Let's say you have something called user equals to the string, okay, xyz. I take this user and I encode it. Now, what is the use of encoding? Because there are two ways we can convert this, or we can encode this. One is either ASCII format or UTF format. Okay, as you know, ASCII is taking 1 bytes. Okay, it's gonna be helping us only for English, not anything apart from that. Whereas UTF is a backward compatible, as well as it has more provision, or it has more room for the new languages. Okay, it's more broader, I can say. So what I prefer is, if I keep it blank, it's gonna consider as UTF-8. That's a good practice in your script. But if you keep ASCII, then that's gonna be in ASCII format. So ASCII to UTF for English character will look the same, but as soon as you start getting some other font like Chinese or something, then your ASCII will start failing, because it is not a encoder for a 2 bytes or a 3 bytes of characters. Okay, so best thing is, don't keep anything. If you see something like only empty bracket, that's nothing but it's preferring UTF-8. So these are two ways to convert a string to bytes. So this is the whole theory behind the first script. Okay, let me show you one more thing. This is ASCII to UTF, right? Let's take some Chinese word. Let me see if I get a Chinese font. Okay, so I have something here. If I take this, see, you can see here ASCII failed to convert that. Okay, so do you have anything from UTF to ASCII? And you see this, what's happening? Your UTF is broader in the sense it can handle Chinese, Arabic, emojis, anything, including the English. Whereas ASCII is capable of handling only English. Okay, and they are backward compatible. The reason why I say they are backward compatible is, let's say this is having 0 to 128 characters. So this is also gonna have those same 0 to 128 characters, but then they are gonna be further as well, like 1 lakh of different character, where it has Arabic, emojis, all those things. So UTF-8 is backward compatible. The first 128 are like straight, they're point to point. Okay, so that's why you kept username. It was able to crack that, because the first 128 is playing a role here. But as soon as you bring something else beyond those 128, your ASCII will start failing. Okay, so that is from the first script point of view. This is a script which we will take it further in the next class. We will add something like saving saving the output. Okay, so what did we clear from this class? We discussed step by step. We discussed why we convert strings to byte. Okay, if you see this format of conversion, that is one way of conversion. If you see this kind of conversion, that is the second way of conversion, but both are converting to bytes at the end. Okay, if you don't do that, you're gonna get concatenation error over here. So let's do that. Okay, so let's say I keep a string here. Okay, let's say I straight away keep this username, which is a string format, over here. Okay, this is a bytes, this is a string. If I run this, I'm going to get a concatenation error, because I cannot keep two different data types. I can keep two strings or two bytes, but I cannot keep a string and a byte. Okay, so don't get confused. This is converting to bytes, this is converting to bytes, this is converting to bytes, this is converting to bytes. How does bytes look like? Byte looks like this. This is not human readable. At the end, you will decode it. Now, decoding can happen in ASCII or it can happen in UTF. Okay, so if I keep it blank, then it's a UTF format and I get the human readable output. Okay, if I keep it ASCII, another encoder, that's also going to work because it's an English of what we are dealing with. Okay, fine. So let me go with Q&A and we'll wind up for the day. I have to take the next class. So you guys can unmute and you guys can ask me the questions.
Yes, Sagar.
Yes.
Anil here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sagar, I'm asking that whatever we are reading in byte and writing in byte in this command.
Yeah.
But here if we run the show clock command,
Okay.
we are reading. We are writing.
Okay.
But not anywhere we are reading the output from the device. And we are just printing it all. So where we are storing whatever we are reading the output of command.
One second. Actually, I could not hear you because the other guys are actually unmuted. Yeah. So go ahead. Yes. What is your doubt? You can unmute. You can unmute.
Okay. So now audible?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm asking here that in our script, we are reading something and then again we are writing and again we are reading and writing. But here, if we are writing show command, show clock, okay. But whatever the output from the machine, we are not reading anywhere. So how it is storing that one?
See, we are actually writing the output of show clock over in this variable. When you're saving something on a variable, you must use the write statement. Over here, you're just reading it. So that's the difference. One is
we are
yeah. So one is taking the output and storing in the variable. The other one is reading the output from that variable.
Yes. So actually, I want to know where we are writing the show clock command on the device, where we are reading the output. This is my concern.
No, not that way. Say, for example, when you're sending the variable T123, you're writing the show clock command for the execution, and this variable is going to the box with that show clock inside that. Okay, and it's bringing the value of that show clock on that TN123. That's the work of write command. It's basically storing that show clock output inside this TN123, and in the next command where I say print, it's reading the output from that 123. So one thing is storing, other thing is reading.
So, another my question is that whatever we are reading and writing, we are storing on only one variable, that is TN123.
Yes.
So it will contain all the things, or because in variable we can keep it one thing, like if we writing XYZ, yes. So you can store XYZ only. Otherwise, if we will try to write something else, it will override those things. So here it is not happening.
So basically, you will see that kind of issue when you had like 10 different lines of command. Okay. So when you had 10 different lines of command, you will see the variable is started getting overwriting. So it will have some will have some buffer space. If the buffer space is occupied, then it will start overwriting, or you will see only the output for the first 100 line. The rest of the lines will be taken down. So what we do for such thing is we will add some bytes implicitly. I will say that I'm expecting 10024 byte structure on this variable. I'm trying to expand the buffer space of that variable. So we can do this. We can increase the buffer space. For such things, the buffer space is enough, so it will not overwrite.
Okay.
So, Sagar, I have
Yeah.
a few questions. My name is Navjot. So the question is, let's say if we are taking the output from, let's say, 3 or 4 different devices, or let's say 50 devices.
Okay.
So all of the output will be saved in one file, or we can separate the file.
We can separate. We basically separate and we keep a file individually from the device point of view.
Okay. So my second question is, so when we decode, so it's mandatory to decode in ASCII, or we can decode in UTF as well?
UTF, as I told you, UTF is the standard, but ASCII also you can use it, because I showed you ASCII also is gonna give you the same exact output for the Chinese. But let's say you have something else coming out from the device, like let's say someone is running the devices on their own regional language, and there is where the ASCII will fail, and you have to depend on UTF.
Okay, so if I type in read all brackets dot decode and just brackets and close it in UTF, so I can still see the same thing.
So you mean to say you want to decode with empty container, empty bracket?
Yep.
So by default, it will consider it will consider UTF-8.
And it will be human readable?
Yes. I just showed you, right? So if you just run this, so UTF-8 is backward compatible. It will consider from the 0 to the all other characters. See, you can see here. And if you have any doubt, you can go to this converter UTF to ASCII, and just you can try doing little bit of your homework. Okay, so if, as you see, I put Chinese on UTF, ASCII failed. Okay, so that's something. When you have ASCII character to a simple UTF, they will still work on an English character.
Okay, so my last question is, so all these recorded videos, you'll post it on the web portal?
Yes, you will get it today on the web portal.
Okay, all good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sagar, I have one more question.
Okay.
So Sagar, actually, we are using here decoding functionality. Like if you are using PyCharm, that's why, or otherwise, if you are using Python console to run any small script, so at that place also we have to convert it to byte as per the Python 3.
See, Python 3 is not about PyCharm. Okay, Python 3 says that use bytes to communicate between the script and the devices, the machine.
Okay, otherwise if I try to write the script directly on Python console, at that point of
you need an ID to convert that, right? Without ID converter, how can you send it to the device? Let's say you take it on server. You take it on server where you have your Python 3 installed. So in case of servers, the command is different. So basically you have to make use of. So let's say in PyCharm, I just went to right click and I ran this. In case of the Linux platform, the same thing would have been something like this. Let's say script1.py. This is in the case of Python 3. Okay, and this is, I'm gonna say that this is my script on Python 3. If it was Python 2, then my command would be something like this. Okay, and when the question what you asked regards to byte, that's over here. If you say your script is Python 3, make sure that you're converting all strings to bytes. Otherwise, you're gonna get an error saying that you expected value was so and so, and it's not getting that output.
Okay, thank you.
Sagar,
yes,
I have two questions. So, when you're fixing that scripting lines right errors, it's coming in color. So, how to detect that fixing part? You're showing something that time initially.
So
color-wise, right?
yeah, so basically it's a automatic in PyCharm. Okay, so if it detects some issues, so let's say here it was detecting. See, it was detecting. That means there is some issue on this line. So I came to know and I just fixed it up.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Thanks. My next question is like when you're for the right thing, whatever going to run on the device, so there you need a backslash n means to go to the next line, right?
Yes.
For reading, it's not required for reading.
See,
When you're doing,
reading is something which is coming from the device, right? So when something is coming from your device, it's your turn. When you write admin, and what you do you keep quiet with writing admin? You yourself will put the enter command, right? And then the device will send you the password, right? It's actually not the device is requiring that / and say for example, this is me who is initiating. If I just keep this and sit, will this go to my box? It will not go, right? There should be that /n, that is nothing but enter, which I am initiating. That came from device. From device there was no requirement of clicking on /n. As soon as you triggered telnet, you got something from the box, you got a username. Now if I type admin and if I sit quietly, it's not going to go to the next remote host, right? I have to enter here. So once I enter, it's going to the next part. So wherever you place enter, you are placing this -n.
okay,
Hi,
got
Sagar.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Sagar. I can see that user.encode,
Yeah,
and after that you are encoding in the UTF, and after that you are adding to the byte.
yeah.
So I didn't get this concept here.
See,
Encoding in
see, basically there are two ways of converting a byte to a string to a byte. Okay, this is one way of converting. This is the second way of converting. If you have any issues, you can straight away take this. Let's say you take it everything, you can place like this. Okay, you can place like this. But the issue with this kind of script is you're including username and password within the lines. That's why I kept a different containers or variables for admin and Cisco to define. So when I'm calling them, when I'm calling these different variables, then it has to be encoded. Okay, say for example,
uh,
this is the way.
I'm yeah, I'm sorry, but as I'm understanding that the empty bracket after the encode means that you are encoding in the UTF-8.
Yes,
Is it correct?
yes.
And after that you are adding it to the byte. But
this is my whole data which I'm sending. So I'm sending my password with the enter statement. So basically I'm sending two different datas.
So what is the meaning of this be the before the enter?
This is your enter, what you do on your keyboard, enter. That is what I'm trying to tell you, right? So when you have your CMD, if I keep this statement, will it do something until I press the enter? So you have to put the enter, right? You have to press the enter button on your keyboard, right? The same thing you are provisioning with the help of these two things. So see.
So the enter also to be added with the B.
Yes.
It is you have to convert it into bytes.
Yes.
Why
Yes,
so?
Because it's within your box now. See, you initiated your telnet. Now who is sending this? Your machine is sending. And machine what it understand? It understand bytes, right? Say if I do like admin, I should send that a keystroke on a byte value only. Then only the device is gonna understand that. It's a machine now.
Actually,
Sagar,
the /n is the enter key which is passed to make the telnet happen on the box.
Sagar, this is not my question. My question is that we are there are the two different type of the data now, the UTF-8 plus and the byte.
Sagar, if I understand correctly, the username is under ASCII and the byte, that is enter, right? So you are trying to concatenate both. So you need to have the same kind of encoding.
See, basically, if you are asking,
you are reading username in ASCII, the UTF-8 code. The same way you are adding the enter also in the same way. So that is the reason you are using that.
Yeah. So someone who is not able to understand encoding, let me show you. See, let's say if I have x equals to username, which is a string, okay, and I let's say I make use of the same x dot encode again. Let me not show you here because it will not understand UTF. Let me show it on the PyCharm. So let's say if I have x equals to username, okay, and I want to convert to a bytes. I told you there are two ways I can convert. One is if I bring this value called b and I say username, okay. So that's one way of converting to bytes, okay. This b with username is one way. The second way of converting the same x equals to username to byte would be with encoding method. Say let's say x equals x dot encode. You can give ASCII, enter. What do you get the output? You get that b dot b hyphen username. Now let's take it in this way. If I take the whole straight these things and keep it this, so does it make more sense now? This is byte, this is byte. Agree? So I'm basically trying to put them all in bytes. So there are two ways I can convert the string into bytes. One is this way, okay. The second one is when you have a variable, when the string was defined on a variable, you are encoding that. You are encoding so that you get it in bytes, something like this. The same thing is actually over here. See.
So my understanding, Sagar, is with the line is so what's happening? You are sending data into bytes into two stages. So let's say when we say username, so we are giving the information username is admin. So that's the first stage of sending data, and then we are also telling the machine to press enter, which is the second bytes we are sending to the machine.
Yeah. So basically, whenever I'm sending a data from PyCharm, it needs enter provision. Otherwise, it will not go to the next line. It will just it will paste the admin, and it will be just on that, and the timeout will happen, and the script is broken. So we need to send enter command.
Yeah. So that's what two stages are.
Yes.
First, enter the username, which is admin, and then press enter.
Yes.
Got it, sir.
So you
Okay,
you are good with why I'm doing this encoding, right? Is basically converting to the bytes only. Okay, it looks all this encoding because we are converting it. That's the only concern here. So if I just redraw once again, how are they associated? So let's say we are good with bytes, okay, and the string which has to be converted to bytes, there are two ways. One way is add b to the string and it's become a byte. The second would be, since you know there are two encoding used, so what you do is let's say user encode, okay, and this will gonna be converted to bytes. Now encoding are of two types. You can either make use of ASCII or you can make use of UTF. So that's why we use the second.
So where anything before dot encode is a variable.
This is a variable
XYZ. Yeah. So we need to enter XYZ dot encode.
Yes, right. So say for example, I'm using user here. If I type XYZ, then I have to make this as XYZ. And then I have to encode. So totally they're gonna be a byte. And how it would look like? It would look like something like this in this scenario. Because XYZ is a variable which consists of this data, and you're trying to encode in UTF. So basically you're converting to bytes. You try to do this simple example. Okay. So let's say you have user equals to admin, and you're trying to see what happens. So let's say you say user dot encode, and you bring the ASCII format. Okay, sorry, not ASCII. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake. ASCII. Okay, so you see you get in byte format. Now let's say you wanted to try it out in UTF-8. So that's again going to give you in byte structure. So basically you're converting into byte, but the only concern is you made use of a separate variables to define them. As I told you in the start, if you would have taken directly and placed it here, then that would have been much more simpler to explain. So let's say I have this, I keep it here with my byte structure. Okay, I don't need this. I don't want encoding, might be if it gets a lot of confusion. Okay, and I don't need these two things. Okay, this script is also good, but I said let's keep username and password separately. Okay, so if I just run this script now,
So the reason behind you doing this,
see,
because if we have to make changes, we can only make changes in the variable side of things and we are good to go.
see, if you see now, this is also good, but the only thing was I used of a different variable, and as I told, string has two ways to convert it. Okay, let's say if I don't include this and I just keep this, and if I run, see, we don't have anything. Okay, let's see, let's find out why don't we get something, because just I removed one hyphen n. What did it happen? Okay, so let me once again rerun this. Let's capture the new packets. Okay, so I have a lot of packets. Let's take one of them. Not this. Okay, let's take this one because it has all the packets from the previous thing. So you see, as soon as I pasted admin, there was no one who could press the enter. My script got failed. It waited for some time and it just got timed out. Something like this. If I just visually want to show you, let's say I typed admin and I was quiet. There was no one who could enter at this moment. If I don't press enter, I will see this is what is happening, right? So that is what happened actually. So if you want to understand, you can print a statement called as timeout. Okay, and you can rerun this and see what happened. Your script only went till here. It couldn't go to the next step. See, that's because there is no one who can press an enter. So until you press enter, it's not gonna be effective. Now let's say I execute the same thing. If I take out those unwanted things, see, you got timed out and now it will pass on to the next things and we should be able to see the output. So you got that thing right, why \n.
Okay,
Sagar, so I have a question actually. So I heard about the getPass module. I know that.
Yeah. So we
was not discussed, but-
will get them all. So that's not the first day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's part of the Telnet library or something
We
else?
can get passed to any of the Python modules. It's just a
Any of the
yeah. It's just a privilege of keeping out the password and this one. So you can be prompted for that and you can enter at the whenever it's prompted.
Yeah, like basically taking the passwords from somewhere from the local repository, an Excel sheet,
Yeah.
and then run the script and then stores
Yeah.
the data
So
again in
yeah,
some
we have not come.
text
Yeah, we
format
have
in
not
some
come
folder.
come down.
Okay, correct,
Yeah, we
correct.
have not come down to that extent. It's all about the
Correct.
basic thing. So we'll take it in the next
Yeah.
classes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Sagar,
Yeah.
Sagar, just one question. For the Python data, byte, string, and tuples, dictionary, set, and boolean, right? So in this data formats for the network automation, we'll be focusing on bytes and strings at the most, is it?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Could you just ask once?
Oh, the data formats you are describing byte, string, tuples,
Yeah.
dictionary, set, boolean, right?
Yeah.
So we will be, using in this is bytes and string.
No.
mostly.
Let's say as some guys were asking, can we include multiple devices, right? So in that cases,
Yeah.
now it will be like a list format.
Okay.
List format consisting
So,
of
depending on the scenario, it will
yes,
change. We will change the data
yes,
formats.
yeah. So now
Sagar,
now this becomes a string when you have multiple things. So this all will come. We
Alright.
we are touching
Sagar,
almost
one
all the
question.
data structure like dictionary, tuples, a list.
Uh-huh.
Everything will be
Set.
set.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for encryption part also we will be handling, right? Some
Encryption
part
in the
where
sense.
encryption is there.
Uh,
And some boxes which are already encrypted, then we need to collect some information from there, passing the passwords.
You mean to say enable password? Because there is no other
Yeah,
encryption than the normal username, password, and the enable password. That's
Service
okay.
service encryption level.
Okay. Yeah, there are some encryptions like TACACS
Sagar,
association and all those things. Right?
TCAS is again a
Yes,
username and
TACACS.
password, right? Is a username and password.
Yeah.
Sagar,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
like we have some kind of digital signature also,
We
along with username and password.
yes, I got you. That we are turning off that signatures here in the lab at least, because that will create a lot of slowness. I got your question. You are trying to bring on the encryption part, right? So let's
correct,
let's
that's right.
take it very simple. Let's say you have the username and password and you just are triggering up the job on your devices, because encryption is after all not a part of the script. It's an external entity like RSA token or some
Yes.
TPAM, which is an external part, right?
It's like MFA authentication, like
Yeah.
dual factor
Exactly.
authentication.
Yeah. So it's an
So that in such a scenario.
yeah, it's an external thing, and it's on a real time basis that you cannot predict it and keep it on somewhere, right?
No, I mean, like, the question is like if MFA enabled is there,
Mhm.
so will this kind of script will work? So
See how it
are
works.
you able to show something?
See how it works in real time production is when I'm given a change window, I execute this script. When I'm executing this script, I will be using my RSA token, which on real time is giving me some code to enter and run the
Yes.
script.
Yes,
So
okay.
so I mean to say that code which I'm getting is real time, right? So that thing is not associated. That is not integrated within the script. So that is something which the network engineer has to do it manually.
No. I understood.
Yeah.
95% of the environments will be like that only.
Yeah.
So like after we are learning all this, actually like is there any way to like skip that part like to bypass and run our script? That is the question.
It should have a
I think
service account.
yeah,
We always have a
guys.
service account for the software.
I think
You cannot integrate
I think we should ask Sagar later on, because now we are at the basic stage.
Yeah.
Maybe at the later stage we can get involved in
Yeah,
that.
that's advanced actually.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, excuse me, I have one question.
Yes.
Yeah, for the last comment,
Okay.
which you put it to print it out.
Okay.
If we are not put this comment, so definitely it will not show up. Right?
Yes, it will.
It will not show the output.
Yes.
So we have to put this one in order to, and we are decoded from ASCII to what?
No. We are decoding from bytes to UTF. If I add ASCII, it will be decoding in ASCII. If I keep it simple, let me always try to put something so that it makes little sense. So basically from bytes to UTF, I'm decoding.
From byte to UTF.
Yes.
Or from UTF to byte. I mean.
No.
No, from byte to UTF.
Yeah. So these are all bytes.
Yes.
Yeah. So you decoded.
Sagar, it can be UTF-8 or it can be ASCII. Yeah, both way.
ASCII, you have to define it, because by default.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling.
Yes.
So both will give the same results.
Yes.
Right?
For English character, they will give the same. English character, the numbers, the plus, minus, the equals to operators, they will be the same. But as soon as you get different language, then they will work differently. The ASCII will be not able to handle the other language.
Will not. Suppose that this router the output will be in Chinese, so we'll not able to put ASCII.
Yes.
So just make
yes. If you keep ASCII, it will fail. If you keep UTF, then it will pass.
Oh, okay.
So if you put it blank, it will be UTF by default. Right?
UTF-8, because UTF also has multiple variant like 16, all those things. So it's a
right.
UTF-8.
UTF-8.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And one more question, Sahar. Why we are taking a pain to convert every time encoding from instead of putting B and we can straight away we can convert as a byte. Why we are encoding? We are making more stress
Yeah.
to the script. Why?
So basically, why is if you directly input the values, then you don't have to make use of encoding. Say like let's say for an example, I'm not using any encoding, right? Because my direct values are within this. But if you you see from the production point of view, you will not want your engineers to go and do something within the lines. This can break the line. This can break. Let's say if they do a double enter and they want to change something, or they do not know where exactly has the username and the password has to be changed. So we keep it separately on the top so that it's become easier for someone to directly go and just change the values over here.
Okay, so it is for the convenient. We are making like we are storing it a variable, and then the variable can be converted into byte by using the encode method, right?
So if you make use of a variable, then you have to make use of a proper encoding to convert. If it was a straight away converting a string, you can do in this way, direct conversion.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, got it. And also, the script what we are using, all the username and password what we are putting inside is visible. Like, is there any way we can encrypt the script itself? No, the other guys can't be able to see. Like, you know what I mean?
We have to see the script. We cannot do encryption here, but instead of telnet, we can make use of SSH so that whatever intermediate data is there, that can be encrypted.
Okay, now I'm telling about the script itself, .py Python file. If I open, if anybody is opening, they can able to see the username password inside, right?
So what you can do is you can take this out and you can import something called as getPass. So what happens?
Okay, so getPass is one of them.
Yeah, so if you have getPass, if you execute this, then it's gonna prompt you. It's gonna prompt you.
Explicitly prompt to put the username.
So these will this will be coming up. Okay.
Okay, in the next class.
So I want to
Sagar, Sagar, one last question from my side. Basically, what I was having that when I run this commands, I need to click run. What you are doing in the pie chart is you are running the script, right? But for me, I need to run it, and it goes to the username prompt, but it doesn't get me to the password
because you're making,
and I need to debug
because you're making use of the getPass module, right?
Yes.
Because you are using that getPass module, that is why the PyCharm is failing. So the option is that you have to go with debugs. I'll let you know one more method for going with run and at the same time get it executed. Okay, so I'll tell you when I take that particular script.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's a drawback of PyCharm. It's not a drawback of your script. It's a drawback of PyCharm. You have to enable one particular settings. If you do not know that, then you just can go with the debug to go over all those steps. Okay. Fine. So I'll wind up this class. So let me. I want to understand. Are you good with the basic things? Why we use bytes, string, ASCII?
Yes.
You are good, right? Because I don't want this to repeat once again in the next.
Yes, it's clear.
Yes, I got the previous class. There was a lot of confusion, but today it's made very clear.
Okay. So always remember. Always remember in this way, byte is something which humans cannot understand, but machines can understand. So PyCharm to device is bytes, and bytes is something which we are not recommending. It's the Python which is recommending, Python 3. So bytes to bytes, that's computer to PyCharm, it's all fine. But how are we humans gonna realize that? How we humans are gonna read that? So we need some encoding, and to encode it, we have either ASCII or UTF. And what is the limitation of ASCII and what is how UTF is very wider is something which you learn today. It will support 1 byte, 2 byte, 3 byte, 4 byte. It's supporting other characters, other languages. Okay, so this is all the basic stuffs with respective to the Python. You will not see this thing when we talk about NetMiko, Paramiko, NEPAM, nor nil. So that is why I take this on the first day, because a lot of the backend things get cleared on the day 1, day 2, day 3. Rest will be the same thing which you will be seeing class by class. Okay. So fine.
So Sagar, just 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So Sagar, what we are understanding that you are saying that if we are writing a script to the PyCharm for the devices, okay. So what we are doing, what we are reading and writing, we are converting into the machine language so that my device can understand. After that, whatever the output we are able to understand, for that we are decoding into the UTF, right?
Yes, human readable language is UTF or ASCII.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the functionality which is happening here. I'm right.
Yes. Okay.
Sagar, are you going to save this output in a separate file or something within the same script?
Output, or you mean to the script?
Output of the script.
But why?
Whatever.
But why do you need output? Because it is changing for you guys, right? So.
No.
Sagar,
Just
no
want
need
to
the output. We want the structure.
Yeah. This makes sense. I'll give you this on the same web portal, like as usual.
Yeah, exactly. We just need the structure.
Yeah. Because it depends from computer to computer and machine to machine and the time you run. So output is actually not required, because output for show clock is everyone knows.
No, not for show clock. I mean to say, for example, there is a show running. For
Okay,
example,
that is also getting changed for person to person. So all you need, So all you would need is this script. Okay, so this script, and how do you validate is, once this is executed, at the very end you will see something with code 0. If you see code 0, that means this is script as executed properly, and you have to manually see the output. You have to see what is the output for show clock. Let's say, you have.
I totally agree with the script. No, what I mean to say is, if I want to make use of this script, for example, for my real-time scenario, okay, so like I need to save in a separate file. It might be in Excel, it might be a Word for Notepad or whatever. So like can you?
Got it. So you wanna save the output in an external file? Yes, we can do that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can redirect, isn't it?
Yeah, so we can save in text file, we can save in Excel, we can save in any file, we can save in default folder, we can save in custom folder. So we can do everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, guys. So
you're right, sir.
Yeah.
We just require the scripts.
Sorry.
Yeah, we just require the scripts actually.
Yes.
Not the outputs. So there are many variants of the scripts for each objective. So we should try and keep those things in the portal. Thank you so much for your call today. Appreciate it.
So I'll give you like whatever variants we had, like at least 3 variants we had. One was directly everything on the script. Then we removed the password user and kept above. When we had UTF-8, when blank. So I'll give you all the variants, so you understand that at the end they are all the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We'll meet tomorrow same time. Okay.
Someone should kindly share the GNS3 script.
Okay. For GNS3 script, have you built the GNS lab?
Yes.
Okay.
We just want this topology.
Okay. Then I'll give you the topology on the group itself. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah. Good night.